Last week, we looked at the 2023 National Reading Barometer, which revealed that nearly 3 in 5 homes don't have access to a single fiction or non-fiction book, and 65% of the homes with children under the age of 10 do not possess a single picture book. While this is a worry, there are some good news. According to the barometer, many South Africans want to read. So let's look at early childhood development in greater detail now and its importance. We speak to Dr. Janeli Kotzé, Basic Education Department Early Childhood Development Acting Director, and Professor Eric Atmore, who is with the Centre for Early Childhood Development and is the director there. Let me thank you both for your time this evening. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Kotzé. Your reaction to the National Reading Barometer saying nearly 3 in 5 homes don't have access to a single fiction or non-fiction book, and around 65% of homes with children under the age of 10 do not possess a single picture book.
Yes, I think that is. I think that's a part of the history of our country and some of the challenges that we're currently facing. We know that language development starts as early as from birth, and there's even studies showing that starts even before birth. And the quicker we can get children to have strong language development in place, especially in their mother tongue, it will help them and set them up that as they enter early childhood development, as they enter ECD centres, they already have a good grasp of language, so that when they reach formal schooling, when they reach grade R, they're ready to take on board the early literacy and emergent literacy skills needed at that point in time.
And Professor Atmore, some activists in this sector say that the importance of early childhood development in South Africa is often overlooked. And while we tend to place a hefty amount of focus on high school as well as tertiary education, do you agree with that?
Yes, historically, early childhood development has been overlooked. I must say, Dr. Kotzé, over the past 2 or 3 years, has done an amazing job in getting early childhood its prominence. Unfortunately, the politicians are not following the leadership of the department, and we're still waiting for the president to come out and categorically state his support for early childhood development. The same with the new minister. She's been in for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's time to get a political statement from her and from government that children will be put first in the future. Otherwise, I'm afraid the poor reading figures, the lack of nutrition for young children, children falling into pit latrines and drowning is going to continue. It needs a political change of mindset, and it needs budget to go with it.
Dr. Kotzé, I'd like to tell you on that one. Do you have the required support?
So I think we've obviously got a new minister that came in 3 weeks ago, and in all her public statements up to now, she has put early childhood development as one of the key priorities. We saw that in her budget statement. We saw that in the opening remarks that she did in the National Council of Provinces. She's reaffirmed to us in the department that early childhood development is a key strategic priority for us as a government. And I think that comes from the realization that not only for the Department of Basic Education, but also for the new government of national unity, children are critically important, and more importantly so, early childhood development is the foundation of our country to set it up for future success.
It's one thing, and I'm staying with you, Dr. Kotzé, I'm going to come to you, Prof, now, but it's one thing to have the intention, Dr. Kotzé, it's another for us to move with speed here. Are we going to see the speed that is needed in order to be able to address these critical problems?
So as the department, we recently released the 2030 strategy to early childhood development, and that sets a very clear vision of achieving universal access to quality ECD programs by 2030. And that is a roadmap for us as a government department, but also for us as a nation to say, how do we rally around our children? How do we ensure as a nation we come together and say that we want to collectively achieve this vision for South Africa? Because yes, as the government and as the Department of Basic Education, we're leading, but we we recognize that early childhood development is delivered in partnership with social sector partners, with other government departments, with parents as the primary caregivers, and we all need to rally around our children and ensure that we achieve this vision for our children.
Prof, I'm listening to Dr. Kotzé right now speak about how critical these other role players are in this particular conversation, but is there harmony when it comes to how they are working together? Because we've seen different government departments, for example, in other sectors working in silos and thus creating a problem. So do we have a unified voice here in order to deal with this?
We are tending towards that. It's certainly much better than it's been for the past 2 decades. But I want to say to Dr. Kotzé, it's all very well having strategies and calls to action and position papers. I will show you 28 that we've had since 1994. Not one of them has been implemented. In fact, the National Development Plan has 13 actions for early childhood development. 3 of those have been partially met, and the other 10, absolutely nothing has been done. So I don't place much faith in position papers, calls to action, and strategies. I place my faith where there's budget and where there's political will. And the budget for early childhood development is a minuscule amount. It's around 2% of basic education expenditure, and it's disgraceful.
Dr. Kotzé?
Yes, I think we totally agree. I think when, as basic education, we inherited this function from social development, one of our key studies was the Public Expenditure and Institution Review that also attested to this fact that currently the 17 Rand per child per day subsidy is not able to deliver the quality services that our children require. And more importantly, the lack of the subsidy means that many children can't access ECD programs because it's too expensive for them to attend. So we've been having multiple discussions with National Treasury to say, how can we systematically start increasing the budget so that more children can access the subsidy, but that the value of the subsidy is also increased so that we can deliver more quality services. So we've submitted our budget bids to National Treasury. We'll hear later this year in the medium-term policy statement whether we've been successful. But we know that there's many people in Presidency and Treasury that's rallying for this case and saying, how do we ensure we put our children first and we invest in our future, knowing that international economic research has shown that the most important investment in a country can make is in its children.
And Prof, of course, I mean, that's going to be quite critical, this issue of the budget, because if children are not eating well, they are not able to grow well. They're also not able to learn well.
Yes, we know that a stunted child cannot learn or is not a learning child. And the figure of 25% of our under sixes being stunted is horrific. It's a war on children. And, you know, if you look at what government always says it doesn't have money, but so many hundreds of billions have been stolen and corruptly used. We've got a situation where 72 million rand was spent on building a school over a sewage pipe. That school is now going to be knocked down. Government also spends about 363 rand per day, every day of the year, on keeping a prisoner in prison. But we can only afford 17 rand per child per day, which has been like that for about 6 years. So its real value is more like 8 rand or 9 rand. And that only goes to certain children because there's a means test. And if you earn more than about 8,000 rand a month, you are too wealthy to get that 17 rand subsidy. So, you know, it comes back to show me your budget and I'll tell you your priorities. And early childhood development is certainly not a priority, notwithstanding Dr. Kotzé's excellent work. And I must stress that. She's a breath of fresh air in the early childhood development arena, which we did not have when it was under social development. But even that suggestion to move to education or to place ECD in education was made 30 years ago to this government. And it took 30 years or 28 years to be executed. There's just no political will to meet the needs of young children.
And Prof, before I give Dr. Kotzé the final say, there's something else I'd like us to touch on before we go, is that, the support for the teachers at this foundation level, is it there, and how much of it is there in order to ensure that they also have the required support to be able to do their jobs properly?
Look, there is support. It comes mostly from the non-profit sector. There are about 85 or 90 early childhood development non-profit providers who provide tremendous support. But, one other thing that bothers me is, and I'd like Dr. Kotzé to perhaps respond to this, why do we call these women ECD practitioners? Why do we not call them what they are? Teachers. They teach our children. They are the coalface of early education. But my view is that it's because it's women, we give it a secondary value and we call it practitioners. These ladies, these women are teachers and they must be respected. They are earning shocking salaries, way 2, 3, 4 times below the minimum wage, and little is being done about it.
Dr. Kotzé?
Yes, no, I think, again, I fully agree with Prof Atmore. We know that there are thousands of women every day serving our children excellently, and they're doing so in conditions that's often really, really tough. And we know that they work exceptionally long hours, and they bring the most exceptional loving care to our children in South Africa. And we agree that the salaries that they're earning is just way, way below the value that they're adding to our country. And that's, again, why we feel it's so important for the subsidy to be increased, is to enable ECD programs, who are the employers of ECD practitioners, to enable them to provide them with better remuneration. And we're also busy with developing a human resource development plan to say, how can we really come and support our practitioners, give them the skills required, help them with the qualifications required, so that they can be better qualified and better supported in what they're doing. And I think Prof Atmore is spot on. There's many NGOs and resource and training organizations that's doing exceptional work in supporting our ECD practitioners. The Centre of ECD that Prof Atmore is from is one of those organizations, and it's through this partnership with them that we really want to see how can we enable these organizations to continue play this role and come alongside them as government so that we can provide better support to our ECD practitioners.
All right, let me thank you both for your time. And as you say, there's a lot of work to be done, but we also will then see if you do have the money to be able to back up this work. Let me thank you both.